Some of the things that we are seeing are going across, again, state lines, out of the country. That is why the federal government has to be involved with those things. If you are okay with that type of stuff happening in our communities, come tell me to my face. Tell me you're okay with it. Again, I do understand why people were upset and why people were scared. And this is why we need our elected officials, our community leaders, making sure that they have correct information or disseminating correct, accurate information. There are a lot of unnecessary things that happened yesterday on all levels. We need to do better. Thank you.
That's right.
One thing a few people were asking was, seeing officers with ICE badges, why are they there if it's not?
It's a federal task force. So I learned after the fact that there were ICE agents there. I didn't see them myself. When I initially went there, I thought it was HSI and FBI. But there were all these different agencies there, ATF, FBI, HSI. There was ICE was a part of it also. And the reason is, and they put out a statement last night, the Department of Homeland Security has created a Homeland Security task force, or task forces. They're all over the country, and there's one here locally, and it involves all of the different federal law enforcement agencies. So I had not seen that before because this is the first time they've done an operation like that.
And did you, or was also interested for the mayor's thoughts on the response? I think what a lot of people were concerned about is the level of response, seeing armored trucks coming down
Yep.
the street. What do you think about that?
So, I mean, and I'll pass it off, but that's what I was referring to when I think, to some degree, I think some of this was tone deaf in the way it was handled.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Sure.
I agree with tone deaf. When community members that are already rightfully afraid see some of these heavily armored vehicles come into their neighborhoods with people in fatigues getting out of them, look, I understand it. That's understandable fear. I had the same concern myself. When you have a Trump administration that is simultaneously creating this atmosphere of distrust, what you're going to get in these tense moments is more distrust. And so it's on us, again, not to counter that kind of narrative with more panic and chaos. It's on us to get the right and correct information out. As I said, I learned about this yesterday. And our job is to get the information, is to disseminate it correctly. And again, we are getting this information from other people also. And then it's to try to keep the city safe.
And is that something where both the police and the city hope that there would be more heads up for these sorts of details?
Well, yes, but importantly, speaking for the city, we do not coordinate or work with ICE on immigration enforcement. And so if we're not working with them, we're not going to get a heads up necessarily on when they're coming into the city. Now, this was not, as the sheriff said, an immigration-related enforcement issue. But still, people need to understand what kind of heads up we may or may not get. To be very clear, we have a separation ordinance at the city that essentially, in general terms, says that our public officials, our police officers, will not be conducting enforcement of federal immigration law. That is what our standard is, and we're abiding with it. Now, we do have an obligation to keep people safe during tenuous circumstances, and when there is a face-off between federal agents and community members, yes, we do have an obligation to keep people safe in the moment.
Yeah, videos going around of folks wearing your uniforms, maybe throwing people to the ground, kind of getting in hand-to-hand combats. Is there any plan to address any of that internally, or kind of meet with those folks?
I will not speak to specific videos that are out there, but what I will say is this, that we do review all use of force incidents. The other thing to keep in mind is, because some of those inquiries were sent to us regarding deputies, those task forces doesn't mean that they're Hennepin County Sheriff's deputies. There's other sheriff's offices that are involved on some of these teams. But again, our deal is, our policy is that we do review all use of force incidents, and we do deal with those accordingly. Back to your question, though, about letting people know if and when there's going to be some kind of action. Well, I'll tell you, the people who want that information most are the people who are trying to prey on our communities. Yes, it would be great to always be transparent and get information out there, but sometimes there are investigations that do not afford us the ability to talk about it. We have to inform people. And again, this is not an immigration enforcement deal. It's a criminal investigation. And while I know that the community would like a heads up on certain things, there's just times that we cannot do that for integrity of the case. And for help with the investigation and bring in those people who continue to wreak havoc in our communities to justice. And so, but again, I will acknowledge there are things that can be done better, which again is why we're having those conversations, those meetings with our federal partners. But we are not responsible for what they do or how they act. We are responsible for our individual agencies. So hopefully those relationships that we have, that they will hear us and saying how this could have been done better, will happen. But again, there were victims. This is not a victimless crime as to why we were there. Victims deserve justice too. And that is why we were there yesterday.
And you mentioned the other similar searches. Were those all in the city, or like where were those other?
No, that was the only one in Minneapolis. There were several throughout Hennepin County as well as other counties in the metro area. Again, there were 8 different places. This what happened yesterday in response only happened in this city. And again, there's a lot to this investigation.
We're at half an hour now, so if we have one more burning question, we can take that.
I don't want to mischaracterize, because it sounds like from the three of you, there was varying levels of maybe knowledge or awareness of what was going to happen if and when yesterday. But to hear people who are the leaders of this area talk about, we didn't know, or we didn't know it was going to be like this, or I didn't know till after the fact, and I was trying to put the pieces together myself. What message does that send to the people that live here about who is calling the shots for things like this?
Well, if you don't mind, let me answer that first. So again, 2 different agencies. I acknowledge that we do have somebody who works as a TFO in human trafficking. Our detective does have knowledge of certain things that are going on that were a part of the case. And again, I'm trying to be careful here for integrity of the case. So there are things that we know that were going to happen. Again, execution of 8 different warrants. Yep, we have that knowledge. None of us could say what those results were going to be. To say that, I would say the overzealous showmanship of our federal governments, that's not something that we shared. Again, but it's important that when missteps happen, that we try to correct them. And so that's why those meetings are going to take place. But I don't think it's a matter of us just not having all the information or right information. I need to acknowledge that, yeah, I did have information, and it's because we have a detective there. And that's why I can say for certain this was not a immigration enforcement status, because I do have that knowledge. But, this is where, again, we got to work better together. We got to acknowledge that when we do things that harm our communities. But again, we also got to be responsible in putting out accurate information. Criminal investigation. That's what this was. Not a raid, not a immigration enforcement. That's not what it was. And I, as the sheriff, can tell you I know that for certain, as I do have information about the case.
I want the people of the city to know we have an incredible relationship with all of federal law enforcement, and we rely on them very heavily. They do a tremendous job at prosecuting shooters, criminal street gang members, people who are trafficking fentanyl, carjacking, very, very serious issues, and we have a fantastic relationship with them, and I am thankful for them. So let me be very, very clear. I think part of the confusion yesterday is a number of things. Part of the confusion stems from this task force just started, all these different agencies. you had a number of federal agents from different parts of the country that were here participating in it because it was so widespread, because there were 8 different warrants happening at the same time. So some of the agents, on Lake Street yesterday were not from Minnesota. The FBI team there was not from Minnesota. So I think all of these things contribute to, some of the issues that we saw, but we're going to correct them. And, I spoke with the acting U.S. attorney yesterday several times, again this morning. He's committed to help, quarterback this so that we don't have this type of issue again. But, when this is part of, federal law enforcement's jurisdiction, and so, particularly when they're conducting a search warrant and the warrant is sealed, as best I can try and get information, I need to get permission before I tell the community what exactly is the contents of it. I can characterize it as a criminal search warrant, but I can't tell the community what is underneath it without getting permission from the U.S. attorney. So that's ultimately what happened yesterday, once we were able to try and make sense of it. But it spiraled very, very quickly. And a lot of some of the ways this was handled, again, was not helpful, but also the rhetoric, the very, very heated rhetoric, almost designed to try and ignite a powder keg. That was not helpful. That does not benefit the community. That doesn't help keep people safe. That doesn't help figure out what the facts are in this situation. So we're going to continue to work as best we can with all of federal law enforcement, and I'm confident, that we will work to try and minimize something like this from happening again as best we can.
Chief, are you sharing updates about Boom Island? Any safety updates? I know you said Park Police has got some things there, but is there anything else from there?
Well, in terms of the investigation, we're making good progress. The investigators have been working very hard. Several leads, hundreds of pieces of evidence that will be processed. That's going to take time. But I know they've got some very, very strong evidence and strong leads that they're working through. So I'm confident that we will be able to bring justice for that victim's family soon.
Sorry, do you have
We're
the
gonna wrap it up there. Thank you so much.
number
Appreciate
of
it.
protesters that were arrested at all yesterday?
We didn't have any arrests initially. I believe there was arrest later in the day related to the motorist that was stranded and trying to get them out.
Oh, okay, but there were no protests from yesterday?
No, from the initial incident yesterday, no.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
thank you. Thank you.